Recording started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This will be a mock live Cooking Matters for Teens, Lesson 1, Lesson Teens Cook. I will be speaking to the screen as if there are people in the classroom, in our Zoom classroom. So if you see that I'm speaking to no one, that is who I'm speaking to, our invisible participants. And here we go. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the room. Hello, I see some familiar faces. Hello, hello. See some new faces, some new names. Welcome, welcome. All right, it looks like we got most people. Let's get started. So welcome everyone. I hope everyone knows why you're here. You're signed up for a Cooking Matters for Teens class, and today is lesson 1 out of a 6-week series. And today's lesson is Teens Cook. With today's class schedule, it is going to be slightly fluid considering the virtualness of the classroom, but our intro should take about 20 minutes. We'll just meet each other, greet each other, and talk about our code of conduct in our classroom. Our cooking and nutrition class portion should take about 30 minutes. That's going to go over knife and food safety, reading a recipe, going through mise en place preparation. We're going to cook our recipe, and then we'll discuss the benefits of making healthy food choices. We'll finally eat together because we are a little family over here, and we'll talk about some discussion and what would you like to learn and such, and talk about what we're going to do in next class. So let's get started. Our goals and objectives I'll touch upon in just a moment. Again, for cooking, we'll just do the knife and food safety as well. And the recipe we are making today is my personal pizza recipe, one of very simple recipe, and a recipe that is able to be, whatever's in your fridge you can put on your pizza, right? And with nutrition, we'll go over what is my plate and what are the benefits of making healthier food choices. A little bit about me. My name is Fatima. I am a SNAP Education Nutrition Educator, and I work at FoodLink. I've earned a 4-year degree in the public health field, and I continue to kind of build my skills in this ever-changing field. I know it's very difficult to kind of keep up with this nutrition news. I have a huge passion for food, culture, and language, and how that all connects to our health. This picture is of a Cooking Matters for Families class conducted at FoodLink's new kitchen classroom at the summer of 2019. It's a great class. So now that you know a little about me, I would like to know a little bit more about you. So whenever you feel comfortable, I would love to hear your name and then hear your favorite dinner. In order for this not to get too loud, because everyone talks at the same time with Zoom and it's difficult to figure out when to enter a conversation, why don't you just raise your hand or use the virtual raise hand, and I'll be able to call on you, and you'll be able to let us know what's going on with your dinner plans. What would you like to learn is also something that I would like to discuss with you guys. So if there is something, you know, after you give your name and your favorite dinner, something that you would like to learn, and so this way I can either incorporate it into today's lesson or future lessons, or if there are any questions that you wanted me to answer, I would be able to do that same thing as well. For privacy issues, if there are questions or anything like that that you would like to keep anonymous, I would suggest that you privately DM me and just let me know if that is a question that I can open to the group publicly, or if that is a question that you would like to just be answered directly towards you. So just keep that in mind. If it is not directed to me privately, I will answer it publicly. But if it is directed to me privately and you would like to keep it anonymous, just please communicate that to me. In this way, we're all on the same page. So let's see, who's ready? Favorite dinner, and I would love to know your name. Yes. Yep. Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, mac and cheese, that's the best. Next one. Okay, we have in the chat, grilled cheese. Grilled cheese is always great, and it's a really easy way to put vegetables and fruit into your grilled cheese, and we can talk about that later. Curry. Curry is awesome. Curry is a beautiful vegetarian dish. You can turn it into a meat dish, but it's so much flavor in it that you don't really require too much meat. Okay. Next page. With our class goals, we'll go over basic principles of knife skills and healthy eating. That is at least our goal for this class today. And with our objectives. So what we're going to learn is how to practice using a knife safely. And at this point, my knife is actually in a safety case. So this way, my hands are going up and down and you'll see that, but my knife is safely sitting on my desk, sleeping. You don't wake the knife up unless it's ready. And so this will be on my desk at this point, and it is in a safety guard. So we'll talk about that later. We'll practice reading we'll practice reading recipes, go through mise en place in preparation for cooking. Mise en place, we'll go over what that means. We'll prepare the recipe together and discuss the benefits of making healthy food. And that's kind of will be our discussion, our end discussion for the night. All right, so this is code of conduct and experience. So I want to know from you guys, what foods do you know how to cook? We got that again, mac and cheese. Quesadilla, okay. Rice and beans, that's a good one. Oh, you guys, you knew better than me when I was younger. Pollo, okay. Spinach and garbanzo beans. Oh, that's awesome, cool. And what do you like most and least about cooking? I know that could be a whole list. Let's try to make it balanced, positive and negative. Prep time. Yep, but we can reduce prep time, and we'll talk about that in a little bit and make that a little bit easier for us in the long run. Mess, yes. The mess of cooking. We'll talk about that as well. It's definitely something that's on everybody's mind, right? One person cooks and the other person cleans, and both sides are angry about it. But we can definitely talk about that. And time, yes. It does take time. It takes time to cook at home and to cook a meal that your family would enjoy and you would enjoy cooking yourself, but it is possible, and we'll also go through that. Now, getting back to us being a classroom, yes, we're not in a regular classroom, but I would still expect classroom rules and people to be respected. And what I would like to do is, instead of me telling you what a code of conduct is, all of you have been students. You all understand how to be a student in the classroom. This is a cooking class, so it'll be slightly different. But what would you like to what do you think that we should all uphold to in our classroom? Respect, correct. Agreed, first and foremost. And when you say respect, what does that necessarily mean? Especially in a cooking environment. Respecting people's taste buds, yes. So I would prefer, instead of saying, ew, yuck, that's gross, I don't like it, things of that nature, which I understand is really easy for us to say, but what I would appreciate is if we can say that that's not my favorite. Because you can really hurt someone's feelings if someone's favorite recipe comes from their grandma that they missed, or whatever the case is that memory includes with them. And if you say, ew, that's gross, it could hurt our feelings and it could hurt our culture as well. So instead of doing that, let's have an open environment and just say that's not my favorite. Don't yuck my yum. Yes, you've taken one of our classes before. Yes, please don't yuck my yum. Meaning that if I think something is tasty, don't tell me it tastes gross. Again, going back to it's not my favorite. So we just don't want to hurt each other's feelings. We want an open, safe environment within these classrooms. Again, we're going to be with each other for 6 weeks. So within that time, we're going to get to know each other, and we're going to get to know our favorite things, our least favorite things. And if we can just keep that conversation open or respectful, that would be perfect. All right, awesome. Thank you. All right, let's get into food and knife safety. So we're chefs in our kitchen. We may not be chefs at some fancy restaurant, but I know that at my kitchen, I call it my restaurant. So in order for us to be safe chefs, what should we do first before touching any food? Go ahead, everyone can just say it out loud. Hand washing, of course. Hand washing for sure. How do we wash our hands? I know it's a silly question, but I would like to hear somebody put it into words for me. Click on let that person know to answer. Yep, you rub your hands under warm soapy water. The whole time your hands are in water, they should also be soapy and lathered. You get in between your fingers, you get underneath your fingernails, and you don't forget the back of your hand as well. So you want to make sure the whole time your hands are underwater, you are rinsing all around, sometimes even up to your wrists or just below your wrists, because food does get up there. So we do have to make sure that not just our hands are clean, but a little bit above that, just to make sure everything is sanitary and no germs are around. How long do we wash our hands for? Ah, someone said it, 20 seconds, correct. 20 seconds. That is about happy birthday twice, and a skill, because I got really bored of saying happy birthday all the time, especially when you wash your hands for what we do for work. In these cooking classes, it gets real bored, and you have to also keep yourself accountable when things like that happen. So if for me not to get bored, I sing happy birthday twice in different languages. So it's also kind of a brain skill for you, and you don't get bored while you're washing your hands. And now I'm able to sing the birthday song in 4 different languages. So I think that's kind of cool. Let me go wash my hands, and we will talk about some knife skills. When you wash your hands, again, 20 seconds, make sure that it's soapy water, and you want to remove, when you are cooking, you want to remove any jewelry that you have, and your hair should be put back. I do not have a hairnet at the moment. I am cooking from my home, so I put my hair in a wrap, and my hair is pushed back in a bun. So I will go wash my hands, come back, and let's get started on knife safety. And I suggest you all do the same as well if you are following along. This would be the chance for you to go wash your hands. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that, and we'll meet back here. Hands washed. Everybody back? I'll give it a couple moments. All right, clean hands, let me see. All right, so into knife skills. So here we are. Now my knife, I'm waking up my knife, which means it comes out of safety, and that is the only time you should be holding your knife. Not for fun, not for games, only to use while we are cooking. This is going to be used here for educational purposes. Okay, so we have our knife here. Now, this is where you put your handle. This is the handle, I'm sorry. And this is where you would put your hand, right? So when you hold a knife, a lot of people will hold it like this. You don't necessarily want to hold it like that because knives are made to balance themselves in your hand. And at this point, it's very unbalanced. Most of the weight is leaning forward, which you have less control, which also means that you're going to try to control it more with your wrist, which would actually cause more damage to the knife, to your hand, and possibly your fingers, hopefully not. That's what we're trying to prevent. So how the best way to hold a knife to be knife safe would be holding it with your thumb on one side up against the unsharp part. They call this the neck or the spine. So you put your thumb here and you turn the knife around and you put your other finger, your pointer finger on the other side. And that is actually, it seems unsafe and it feels weird when you're not used to it, but this is the most balanced it will be in your hand. So hold it with your 3 fingers on the handle, that one index finger at the end, and your thumb right at the end of that. All right. Also, just be aware, the unsafest part of your knife is, go ahead, shout it out. No, I thought I'd trick you. It's actually this part. This is the sharpest part of the knife. I think custom in the older generations, they used to pop the can open with the back of your knife. And so this is kind of just traditionally has been kept sharp, but this is the sharpest part. So just be aware of that when you are shopping. All right, so what I also want you to know, I'm putting my knife back to sleep. What I need you to know is when we are using our hand, when we're using our guide hand, this is considered our guide hand. You put your fingers underneath your hand. So while you are cutting, I'll use my safety guard. While you are cutting, your fingernails will be underneath your hand, meaning once you cut, that'll be your guide. That'll be the guide to where your knife will actually stop. If you are holding the produce like this, I can easily cut over my fingers when I'm not paying attention. The best way to do that, again, is using the claw method. See how it looks like a little bear claw? So you would use the claw method. Curling your fingers towards your palm while you hold the food. Now, that can be really awkward. It's awkward because we don't usually chop like that. We didn't teach, we weren't taught that and things when we were younger, but that is the safest way to do it. You want to also make sure that you have a flat surface. That also means the cutting board that you are putting your produce on. And it also means that you want a flat surface on the produce itself. We will go through how to work around that especially when it comes to round items like an onion. Other than that, today we're going to also use a bell pepper. This does have a flat surface. This part is not flat. So we will talk about that later and how we do that when we do our recipes. Back to our knife. The tip of your knife is going to always be pointed towards the cutting board. You don't want it to lift your knife up as if you're hinging at your shoulders. We're not chopping when it comes to with knife work, with knife safety. You're actually going to rock your knife. So your tip of your knife should always be going towards the cutting board, and you're going to use a rocking motion or a sawing motion to get through that produce or whatever you're cutting. When you slide your knife back and forth in that sawing motion, it actually requires less pressure, and you'll actually be easier, almost like butter, to go through that produce versus putting your body pressure on top of that knife and on the spine, which will actually be able to rock your knife, and that is how you get hurt. So let's keep that in mind. Knife goes back to sleep. All right, so what is mise en place? Shout it out, let me know. Silence. What about in the chat box? Everything in its place. Awesome, that's exactly what it is. So mise en place is everything in its place. It's a French culinary term. What that means is, can someone let me know what everything in its place means? Chat box, welcome. It's having all your cooking items next to you when you are cooking. That makes it run very smooth. And you've seen celebrity chefs do it all the time, where they have their little thing of salt, little thing of pepper, little thing of everything. So what we're able to do with that is, once everything is chopped and put it in its place, whether it's put next to the chopping board, on your little containers. For example, today we will be using just containers like that. We have our raw onion. Once this is chopped up, I'm going to put it in here. And then it just makes it easier to make our little pizzas and grab it as we go. If we're chopping along along while food is being cooked. A lot of times, if you're paying attention to two separate things at once, one can burn, or you can also cut yourself to try rushing the produce back in the pot. So mise en place just makes cooking a lot easier, a lot smoother. And before we had talked about somebody in our classroom had said that it's messy, right? Cooking can be messy. Yes, it can be messy, but using the mise en place preparation method, it becomes a little less messier. You throw the garbage out when you need to. Before you start cooking, you have all your things in place. You don't necessarily have to use all these containers. Do what feels comfortable to you. You can put it on a plate, put it on the cutting board. I don't suggest leaving items on your cutting board because you want to be able to have an open free space in order to cut and clean your produce. So I prefer it to be off the cutting board. Whatever is on the cutting board is going to be cut. That is the purpose. Does this look familiar to anyone? Probably most of you. Yes, it's my plate. So my plate is just a method. It's called the plate method. And the plate method really just is a simple way of looking at a plate and stating how many of the food groups we should be eating. So can some people let me know if they've seen this before? You've seen it before? Yes, 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 a lot of you. Okay, a couple of you don't know, haven't seen it before, maybe you're not familiar with it. But this is a very simple way of looking into food groups and how much and of what to eat on a daily basis. So can anyone tell me what they notice about, out of the 5 food groups, let's talk about fruits and vegetables. What do you notice about the fruits and vegetables on this plate? Well, how is it different from the other food groups? It's obvious. I'm not, I'm not trying to trick you. It's a very simple question. Yeah, there you go. It's not a trick question. Yes, it's half of our plate. So we want to focus on whenever we consume fruits and vegetables at home, we want to consider that it's going to be, that we should eat half of our plate of fruits and vegetables. Correct. Make half of your fruits and vegetables on your plate. I just gave you the answer. With grains, yes, it's about roughly a little bit of a quarter of our plate. So we want to make sure that we are consuming grains like that, a little bit more than a quarter of our plate throughout the day, throughout the 3 meals of the day. And within the grain realm, there are refined grains and unrefined grains, right? Or whole grains. So we don't have to have whole grains all the time, but we do want to have half our grains to be whole. So for example, if you enjoy rice most of the week, then I would consider having brown rice for half of the week. If you considered having breakfast in the morning with some bread, you can have whole wheat bread or whole wheat pasta for dinner instead of just having regular white pasta. Another great snack, a whole wheat snack to have, popcorn. Popcorn is a great snack to have. It's a whole grain and it's low calorie and you don't have to put a lot of salt, pepper, or flavorings or sugar or anything like that in it. It just kind of tastes good naturally the way it is with slight seasonings. And it's a whole grain that's basically in your own little snack. Yes, yep, whole wheat quesadillas, yep. What else would you think? How would you incorporate more whole grains into your meals? And I know somebody said, I can make my mac and cheese with whole grains. Yes, whole grain pasta, whole wheat pasta, which is actually quite affordable nowadays. Before it was hard to find, but now you can find it in basically any grocery store around. And yes, I make overnight oats. Ooh, this class is interesting. Okay. My brown rice always comes out weird. We'll definitely talk about that. Brown rice takes more time to cook than white rice, so it's always a little bit better or to prepare it in the beginning of the week. So making a big batch of brown rice, follow the rules on the package. That'll usually give you the hint of how to cook it. Once you have that big batch, rice is actually perfect to be frozen. So you can either separate it into different containers and put it in your refrigerator and use it for the rest of the week, or you can also freeze it and just kind of pull out your servings, or use it for breakfast, burritos, use it for dinner, use it for lunch. So that was a really good point. Another good question. All right, to our proteins. Whenever we choose proteins, we want to choose leaner proteins, meaning I know everyone just thinks about meat and things like that, so we'll talk about meat at the moment. So if we're talking about meat in general, we want to choose leaner options. And can anyone tell me what leaner means? A leaner option of meat. Someone said less fat. Yep. So what that means is when something is leaner, it has less fat than it would naturally or it would compared to something else in that brand. So if you buy meat that is 80% lean, what that means is it's 80% meat and the rest of that 20% would be fat. That's not a very lean product. You want to go towards like the 90% range, which is harder to find, but if you can find it, it would, that's a better option than buying something that's less lean. And leaner also means just because it has less fat, it would also have less saturated fat, which is found in animal products. So choosing that leaner option will be a better option for our hearts and our health. Now, varying your protein is something that we don't think about much because we only think about, a lot of us only think about meat and such. But varying our protein, so that means turkey is leaner than red meat, chicken is leaner than red meat, fish is also another alternative. Yeah, I see, yeah, peanut butter, sun butter. So yep, some plants, some nuts and seeds, or nuts and seeds period, they're also a great source of protein. That includes peanut butter. Someone had said they're allergic to peanut butter, so they use sun butter, which is a spread, a nut spread that is used, is made with sunflower. So that's why they call it sun butter. That's a great option. And beans and lentils. Beans and lentils are affordable, very affordable compared to meat. Excuse me. They're very affordable compared to meat, and especially when you buy the dried packages or the dried lentils, you can buy, I mean, like 2 pounds of it for $1, maybe at the store, and roughly around that price. And that bag would last you a very, very long time versus buying it in the can. And buying dried beans versus buying the beans in a can. Number one, the dried beans are more affordable and they'll kind of last longer and be a bigger bang for your buck. Canned beans, you do come with the risk of having more sodium inside that package, unless you can find beans with no added salt, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Last but not least, dairy. When you start buying or consuming dairy, it is best to try to find the low fat and fat-free options when available. That means yogurt, milk, cheese, someone said ice cream. They do have low fat options for ice cream. You do have to be careful when you buy some processed meats, some processed dairies and frozen items like that, because whenever it gets to be low fat, it can also be increased with sugar. So just be careful and look at the nutritional facts and just make sure that we're making the best healthier choices for ourselves. Any questions? Limit the extras, yes. So at the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see limit extras, limit the extras. And that just means drinking and eating your beverages. It says drink and eat beverages and food with less sodium, saturated fat, and added sugars, which we just touched upon within talking about those food groups, those 5 food groups. And yes, that just means that sugars, added sugars, candy, juices, saturated fat, which is that red meat that we did talk about, or buying meats that are 80% lean, that is not as lean as we want it to be. And then with the beans and a lot of frozen processed meals, we want to make sure that it is lower in sodium, because they can increase the sodium a lot to preserve those products, for sure. Thank you for that question. Last but not least, out of the 5 food groups, I know it can look very complicated to look at it and you're thinking, am I supposed to do that at every meal? Not necessarily. This is a balanced day, right? A balanced week. Not every day is going to look the same, and not every meal is going to look the same, because not every day for us looks the same. So a good balance, a good kind of rule is eating 3 food groups at each meal. Can anyone kind of throw me a dinner recipe, breakfast recipe, a recipe that has at least 3 food groups in each, in that recipe? Someone keeps saying mac and cheese. Okay, so let's talk about mac and cheese, since that is considered obviously very popular today. What is the ingredients in a mac and cheese? Someone throw it out. Dairy, right? You get, sometimes people put milk in theirs. Cheese, which is dairy. Pasta, which is a grain, correct? That's it, right? If we think about pasta, even though we think about it as being very filling and obviously delicious, it only has 2 food groups in it, technically. So if we were to try to make that a healthier choice, what can we do to the pasta to make it a 3 food group meal? You can add a vegetable. Yep, that's what I would do. What kind of vegetables would you add? Cauliflower. Yes, cauliflower is very good in mac and cheese. You kind of don't even taste it; it just tastes crispy. That was a very good suggestion. Broccoli and cheese. They're best friends. Different cheeses. You can put different cheeses to make it taste a little bit different. Yep. When we add our dairy as well, what can we do? Instead of adding whole milk dairy, whole fat dairy. Yep, we can use low fat dairy or fat-free dairy. That is making it a healthier choice. So we already added a vegetable. We're using low fat milk. What about the cheese? Yep, we can find low fat cheddar cheese and things like that at the grocery store for sure. And what about the pasta? What can we do with the pasta? Whole fat. Sorry, not whole fat, I read that wrong. Whole wheat. You can use whole wheat pasta, and it comes in spirals and elbows and spaghetti and angel hair, and you can get it in all types of options. And there's also gluten-free options as well. Yes. Pro tip, I would say, if you don't like cauliflower, if you don't like broccoli, and you can add that frozen as well to your mac and cheese. I have used butternut squash. I've used it in a can, and I've used it frozen and just thawed it and mushed it in the bag. When I bought it frozen, just mush it in the bag once it's thawed, and then you add that to your cheese sauce. Once it's added to your cheese sauce, you have no idea it's there because it's orange. So once you have an orange cheese sauce, you won't know that butternut squash is there. You'll feel you'll taste like a slight sweetness to it, but you won't really know why it's there, but it just tastes good. And so that's another way of adding vegetables to your meal without overcomplicating it. All right, next. Okay, so we are making my personal pizza. That's what it's called, and it is a recipe found on foodhero.org. The recipe is linked below. This makes 1 pizza. The cooking time will be about 15 minutes, and our prep time, our mise en place time, will be about 10 minutes. I'm assuming it's going to take less than that. We'll see. I want to see. So can somebody go through the ingredients for me? Read the first 2. Half English muffin, half tablespoon tomato sauce. Awesome. So today, I don't have English muffins on hand, but what I do have is wheat bread. I have whole wheat bread. So it's just whole wheat slices, right? And I didn't have any English muffin, but I do have bread, and that will be my grain. And that is what I'm going to use today for my personal pizza. You can do the same if you do not have English muffins. You can use a bagel, like a whole wheat bagel, or just you can use tortillas or corn quesadilla tortillas, things like that. That would be a great option as well. Tomato sauce, good. And next two, 1 tablespoon low-fat cheese, 4 tablespoons chopped vegetables, fruits, and or protein. Awesome. All right, so it says low-fat cheese, which we have right here. Kind of did our mise en place a little bit, right? So we have our low-fat cheese here. We already have our whole wheat bread here. I have my tomato sauce going here. Then it says 4 tablespoons of chopped vegetables, fruits, or a protein of your choice. The vegetables that I had on hand today were mixed and matched, and kind of what I want to put on my own pizza is going to be a little bit mixed and matched because we're home, we can customize whatever we want. So today I had on hand, I don't know if you can see, but I had on hand some frozen spinach that I just let thaw, and I took the water out of it, chopped it up a little bit, and so I'm going to put some spinach on my pizza. I have a orange bell pepper, so I'll put that, chop it up, and I'll put that on the pizza as well. And I have a red onion, and I'm going to put some sliced red onion on top as well. So those are going to be my vegetables that I have. I want to know what kind of toppings that you would put on your pizza. Just cheese, plain cheese. Okay. Feta. Oh, interesting. Yep, that sounds good. Feta and spinach. Chicken, barbecue chicken. Okay. Plain pizza, mostly plain. Okay. Now, the reason we want to vary our vegetables is number one, what we talked about with the three types of food groups, and you want to vary your vegetables and fruit as well. So we have different colors, right? We have our green spinach. We have our purple onion. And we have our orange bell pepper, right? But let's talk more so about the food groups. So how many food groups is in right now with the ingredients that I have is in our personal pizza? We have vegetables, right? Our grain, yep, is the whole wheat bread. And our cheese, you almost forgot the best part. Yes, our low-fat cheese. So those are 3 out of the 5 food groups that are going to be in our personal pizza. Awesome. So anyone want to go through the first direction? Preheat oven to 400 degrees. Let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and preheat my oven to 400 degrees. I will be right back. I'm right here with you. 400 seems pretty high, but with pizza ovens and things like that, you're not necessarily trying to cook any of this dough. You're just kind of going to flash cook it to make sure that crispness happens at the bottom and the cheese melts at the top. Especially since the English muffins and this bread is already cooked. It's just going to toast the top and then melt the cheese and create our little personal pizza. Anyone want to read the second one? Lightly toast English muffin. Okay, so you can toast these a couple different ways. Our oven is already on. So I personally am not going to toast it just because I like the non-toasted feel up top and then the kind of crisp bottom that the oven creates. So I will not personally toast it, but you can toast it by putting it in the oven for just a couple of minutes once it becomes preheated. And it'll just kind of make the top a little bit crisp. Once you put the tomato sauce on top, it won't soak through, but I kind of like that taste, I know. I'm gonna keep it the way it is. All right, number 3. Spread the spaghetti sauce or pizza sauce. Awesome, so what I'm going to do is show you that in a little bit. We're gonna start cutting up our bell peppers and onions. Then it says number 4, Add cheese and your pizza topping. Awesome. And then number 5. Bake 5 to 7 minutes until muffin is lightly browned. Correct. So you'll check on your pizzas about 5 minutes into it, and you'll see if that is how browned you like it or how cooked you like it. Well done, underdone, whatever the case. That is your preference. We are chefs in our kitchen. Just make sure it is done and not undercooked. And then if you still need a little bit more time, 7 minutes would then be the more toasty type of pizza. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so we can get into chopping and knife safety. All right. I'm hoping that you can see. So our hands are clean. Everything is sanitized. Our cutting board is washed and our produce are also washed as well. So what we'll do here is we'll start with our bell pepper. Try to get this better. All right. So what we can do here is this bell pepper, remember we talked about a flat surface, right? So this bell pepper does have a flat surface. On most sides of it, you can find the flat surface. The thing is, with a bell pepper, most items we want to top and tail it. Top and tail means that you want to cut the top off and the tail off. But if you have opened up a bell pepper before, you'll see that there is almost like a mushroom cloud of seeds sitting right in the middle of the bell pepper. You'll see like a giant kind of, it's not giant, but it's a good size seeds in there. And once you cut through the seeds, they'll go everywhere, all over your cutting board and all over the floor and things like that. So what we will do to try to prevent that is make a straight line, a straight cut through from the stem so we can create that flat surface. Now again, knife safety. This is the spine. I'm holding it against the spine. My thumb goes on this side and my index finger, my pointer finger will go on the other side. Now we use our claw method. Again, fingernails go under your hand. And what I meant by the safety part, and this being your guide hand, is once my point of the knife is on the cutting board, we're going to just saw or rock the knife back and forth. Now, if we are doing that properly, that means that our knife should not be going over the height of our hand, right? We're not holding produce at the moment, but let's say our hand is 1 inch off of the board. We should not be able, our knife should not be able to go over the height of our fingers. So we are just going to do this, rock and saw back and forth. Once your guiding hand is in place and your fingernails are under the palm, the knife has nowhere to go after it has hit your fingers. So you don't want it to cut your fingers, you just want to use, like I said, as a guide. So that is why we try to use the claw method as much as possible. So back to our bell pepper, I'm going to use the claw method, hold on to your produce. Remember, your produce is not in charge of you, you are in charge of your produce. So hold it like you actually are trying to hold it onto the surface of the cutting board. Don't be afraid. The more afraid and timid you are, the more the knife gets scared of you and starts acting funny. No, I'm kidding. So we're gonna go slowly in a sawing motion and just take that little piece off. That little piece was what was not allowing us to have a flat surface. And so now we're gonna put that in our junk bowl. So we're not running to the garbage all the time. This makes things a lot easier. All of our skins and seeds and things like that will go in this bowl, and then we'll be able to just make one trip to the garbage, and that will make prep and cooking a lot cleaner and simpler. So here we are, we have our flat surface. We're gonna put the bell pepper right on top. All right, so that's what we were looking for. We're gonna tail, that was the top, this is gonna tail it. All right. We'll cut those in a minute. I just want to show you what's inside. Actually, I'll make another cut because we didn't cut through. And just go slow, there's no need to rush. So I don't know if you see it, but inside is those seeds, that little piece of seeds that you see in the middle. If I cut through that, all those seeds would be all over the floor, all over my cutting board. It just ends up being a mess. So you can do it in any way you can. There's so many ways to cut a bell pepper, but I find this to be one of the simpler methods. So you're holding your bell pepper with your claw. And again, your claw doesn't necessarily just live in this realm, right? If we have different types of produce, we have to hold the produce differently. So our claw is still working, meaning our knife, our guide hand is also protecting us. So we are going to, because we see the stems in the middle, we are going to, the seeds in the middle, we're gonna just cut right around the seed. You see what I'm saying? How it's all right there. And now that I see through it, I can continue to hold using my claw and just using a small sawing motion back and forth. We're going to create our planks. And from our planks, we'll go into making sticks. And here we go, we cut around the edges of that little seed pile. Once this is done, we can put it in our garbage bowl, saving us some time and space. Some people don't like the pith of this. It doesn't have any flavor. Some say that it is bitter. You can remove it just by using your fingers. You don't always have to use a knife in the kitchen. Our best utensils are our hands and our fingers. This goes into the garbage bowl. All right, so now we have clean bell pepper, right? But we have sticks. Planks. These cannot be put onto our pizza, right? Unless you want it. That's your chef in your kitchen. But I would like them to be cut smaller. So I'm going to take a few of my planks and turn them into sticks. So again, use our guide hand, fingernails under the palm, go back and forth. Moving our guide hand slowly as we go back, creating sticks. So once we made our sticks, I am now going to turn them into pebbles. If this is where you would like to put this type of style on your pizza, you would like to put this on your pizza, that's perfectly fine, you can do that. But I'm gonna make them actually smaller because I like bite-sized pieces. So now that these are sticks, I'm gonna turn them into pebbles. So here we are, we're lining them up. Using our guide hand, you can do one at a time. I actually suggest that if you are new to using a knife, I would do one at a time. Holding again, using your claw. I know that this is awkward, but it is very important for us to build this skill. Again, using our claw and just going back and forth, rocking the knife, tip to the cutting board. Taking your time, and here we go. These are our little pebbles. What you also want to make sure when we're cutting is that things become the same size. So, for example, if I was to cut something this size and put it on the pizza, and then I also was to put something this size on the pizza, what is going to cook faster? Shout it out. Yes, this little piece is going to cook faster than this piece. And some people don't mind, but if we're talking about bigger dishes and things like that, one might burn faster than another piece might burn, and then we have the flavors that are not melding properly. So again, make sure that whatever you're cutting ends up being a decent or similar size to one another. So I am going to finish up these little sticks. I'll give you guys some time to do that at home. Awesome. All right. All right, so now we're working on our mise en place again. So once this is chopped up, I'm gonna put it in my little container prep. Can you guys say mise en place? I want to hear it. Mise en place. Mise en place. Can I hear it? That's awesome. All right, so now we have our mise en place peppers. Now I'm going to put an onion on my pizza. I have red onion today. You can use any onion you want, any onion that's on sale, right? Any onion that's available to you. You don't even have to use onion. You can use scallions or just onion powder. But today, this is what I would like on my pizza. So remember we talked about a flat surface, right? This doesn't have a flat surface. So how do we get around that? Anybody know? Correct. Yes. We want to make sure we get a flat surface. In order to create one, we have to be safe with it. When we have an object that's kind of just going around our table and we have a sharp hand and a sharp knife in one hand, we can easily hurt ourselves by this running around and then us hurting our fingers. We do not want that. We are professionals in our kitchen. So what we want to do is hold it safely with as much as we can with our claw, and then grab our onion and make that small, soft, but stern saw all the way down. We take that off of our knife and put it in our garbage bowl. We now have that flat surface we were looking for. So now our onion is not going anywhere on our cutting board. So once it's cut like this, the onion has layers, and I want to get to that outer layer, and that's the part that we're not eating. So the easiest way to get to that is going to be our train and tunnel method. And why I call that a train and tunnel method is we're going to create a tunnel with our fingers, with our index finger and our thumb. We're going to hold it with space between the object, in this case it would be an onion, and then the top of our hand. The knife will be our train. So what happens, why we are using that method, is it is large enough that we cannot hold it, it's small enough that we cannot necessarily hold it with our hands, and it is kind of large enough where it would be easier to hold it like this. So we want our fingers out of the way, and our knife will go right towards the middle, which means our fingers are going to be as far away from the knife as possible, at least in this situation. So going back to our knife, holding it properly, making sure that our fingers are out of the way, we are going to put the train, which is the knife, inside of our tunnel. And again, with that sawing, soft rocking motion, I am not putting much pressure on this onion. If you do need to put slight pressure, you just put like micro pressure on it and it'll kind of wiggle itself into place. Now, again, you see how our knife is, the tip of our knife is towards the cutting board. Again, we're just going to use slight rocking motion and get right through that onion without much pressure. Now we have two pieces. I'm going to put this to the side and we're going to use that for a different recipe. Now I'm going to take the top layer off of onion, the onion skin. And this goes to the garbage bowl. All right, so it depends on what you want on your onion. I'm gonna actually do it in just slices instead of chopped, but I'll show you both. So here, we're gonna use our claw method. Now that we have a flat surface and this part, all the skin is taken off, and remember our produce was washed before we started this recipe. So our fingers are gonna go, our fingernails are gonna go underneath, and we're gonna use the claw, hold our knife properly, and saw right into our onion. We're going to take that off safely. And here we have our pieces of onion that we're going to put on top of my personal pizza. If you would like chopped onions, this is what I suggest. Now again, we're being safe. So we are safe chefs in our kitchen. What you want to do is hold it in the claw method this way. You saw me hold it this way with my hand towards the end of the onion because I wanted slices. But if we're going to chop it, we're going to hold it in the opposite way where we're still using the claw method. We're going to make incisions that go almost all the way to the back, but we're not trying to actually cut through the onion. Why? Because there's different layers. These are already technically cut, right? They're already made little incisions naturally. So we want to cut horizontally against, against those ridges, those lines, in order to get an easy chop. So again, hold with your claw. We're going to not cut through it, just cut into it, right? You see how it's not cut through? Again, and again. This is a small onion. It's kind of easier with larger onions. All right, so then once we go back and make our regular slices that we did before, we actually have chopped onions. Now we have our chopped onion. We're gonna put that into our little mise en place bowl, our prep bowl. And here the frozen spinach was actually already chopped, so I'm just gonna separate it in the bowl. All right, so remember that we do have our oven preheating. So now that we have our mise en place going on, let's start making our pizza. Let's get our baking dish. Now that this knife is not going to be used any longer. Excuse me, this knife is not going to be used any longer. So we're going to put it back to sleep, which means I'm going to put it back in its safety guard, and this is going to have to be washed. All right, so here's our whole wheat bread. You can use the tortillas, you can use the wraps, you can use English muffins, you can use bagels. So these are our whole wheat pizzas. In order to toast the tops, we're going to spray some olive oil on them. Just flip it around so they don't stick. Just a quick spray. Now in our recipe, it asks for a couple tablespoons of pizza dough. I have seasoned tomato dough. I'm sorry, not pizza dough, pizza sauce. I have seasoned tomato sauce. This sauce did have a no salt added label, which we will talk about later. Just be aware that whenever you buy products in a can, they are more likely to have more sodium than we would put in our own pizza sauce or anything like that. So just be aware of the tomato sauce or pizza sauce that you are buying. I would actually I would prefer to get the tomato sauce because then it's just pure tomato sauce. It is going to have some sodium because of the product, unless it says no sodium added, because it is a canned processed product. Pizza sauce is more seasoned. It has its garlic, it has everything in it, and it has salt, and it's seasoned. So I would suggest to get the tomato sauce and possibly season it yourself to reduce the amount of sodium in this meal. So we're going to use about a tablespoon, but it's going to be different depending on the grain that you're using. And looks like it might be just about a tablespoon for me. So here we go. Another tablespoon. Yeah, you don't have to just use tomato sauce. You can use low sodium Alfredo sauce or low fat Alfredo sauce, which I've seen before, and you can also make yourself. Very simple recipe to make. I'm actually going to use a little bit more tomatoes. You can use salsa for sure. I've definitely made pizza with salsa before when I didn't have tomato sauce. I've also made pizza with diced tomatoes instead of a sauce. It was just diced tomatoes on top because they were juiced enough in the oven where it released some of the tomato juice. And you see what I was saying about toasting it? Because otherwise the tomato will absorb, the bread will absorb that tomato sauce. It is, but I told you I prefer that. All right, so there's our tomatoes. We're gonna put our low-fat cheese on top. Now remember, we are making healthier choices, so it's nice to indulge once in a while, but just make sure that indulgement is once in a while, because we are looking out for our own health. So we're gonna put a little bit of cheese on here, that low-fat cheese. And see how the mise en place makes it very easy to just then make the dish instead of worry about 5 other things at once. So here we are with our cheese. You can also vary your cheese. You can use mozzarella, you can use pepper jack, which I have done before. I've made curry pizza. I mean, pizza is kind of a blank plate, right? Blank canvas. You can do with it what you want. You can make it as healthy as possible. You just gotta do it. Now, I personally have been craving very different stuff lately. So what I'm gonna do is add some slices to each, just because I do like cooked onion. So that's gonna be on all the pizzas, because it's my pizza, my personal pizza. All right, so that's our first vegetable. I'm gonna put bell peppers on 2 of them, because I really enjoy bell peppers. I'm gonna put spinach on 1. Actually, I'll use spinach and red onion instead of bell pepper. So we have a variety right in front of us. We didn't even have to pay anyone for it. And boom. So these go in the oven at 400. Our oven has been preheating. Let's bring these out to the oven. All right, so let's wash our hands. We wash our hands before and after, and we also want to clean up. So since that is going to be in the oven for another 5 minutes before we check on it, we want to make sure that we're cleaning up as we go, so this way things don't get annoying at the end. Remember, we talked about how messy things can get while cooking. So this is the best way to kind of clean up as you go. You already did the mise en place. We already have the bowl that has the garbage in it. All you have to do is throw that sucker out, put this in the sink, and put whatever else you need to put in the sink with it. I still have some leftover spinach, and I do have some leftover bell pepper and some onion. I do have a lot of bell pepper left over. So here those are. And what I'm going to do is not waste this. We are going to, or you can, actually, what can we do with this? What can we do with that instead of wasting it? Yes, you can dip it. What else can we do? What would you do with these extra ingredients if that was in your home? Another pizza? Okay. What about for breakfast? Yeah, we can turn it into an omelet. Exactly right. So we can turn these into an omelet, put some eggs on it, even put some beans on it and put it over rice and cook these up. Somebody said put it on curry, put it in your curry. Yes, these are curry, definitely curry ingredients for sure. So I'm just gonna take all these leftovers, put a lid on top, put them in the fridge. I have a good amount of tomato sauce. We can always use that as pasta for later. Put the lid on that, put that in the fridge. Again, this goes to the garbage. We have extra cheese. This gets a lid on it and goes to the fridge. And that is basically our cleanup. The only other thing we had to really clean is our measuring spoons. So our cutting board, our measuring spoons are gonna get cleaned up. All right, so while that is cooking, yes, yep. If you were to use, good question. If you were to use tortillas instead of like the bread that we used or the English muffins or bagels and such, that's actually it's gonna cook faster because it's thinner. So you have to make sure that things you put on top are going to be thin enough where it's not gonna overweigh it and it's not gonna burn the outside. So yes, you're right that tortillas are thinner, so you wanna make sure they don't burn. Another way you can also do it is put a little bit of that low-fat cheese on one tortilla. So for example, this is your tortilla. You put a little bit of low-fat cheese on top, just a little bit, because you're kind of using it as a glue. Then you put another whole wheat tortilla on top, and then you have a double layer so that the cheese allow it to stick, and then you have a double layer so it allows it to cook longer in the oven, and it'll actually cook the toppings versus just getting warm and then burn the sides. So that's a really good question. Excuse me. Now, why do you think, since we're waiting for everything in the oven and we have a little moment to chit chat, excuse me, what foods are your most favorite, or recipes or dinners or anything like that that are your most favorite that you can incorporate more of my plate into those dishes? So we already talked about mac and cheese. Somebody had said beans or rice. Do you want to discuss what is in beans and rice? Beans, rice, tomato sauce, adobo, sazon, sofrito, correct? Yep. Okay. And so if we have beans, rice, tomato sauce, those are the first three ingredients you had stated, right? That's three food groups, right? So what food group does tomato sauce belong? Yep, the vegetable group. Yep. What does the rice belong? Where does the rice belong? Correct, the grains. Mm-hmm. So she said beans. Yes, a protein. I thought I was going to trick you. Yes, it is considered a protein. So that beans and rice are actually complete protein. We can go into that further in later classes. But as of right now, yes, beans and rice would be 3 out of the 5 food groups. And how else could you add another vegetable to it? Or another food group to it? Just the meal. It doesn't necessarily have to be the beans and rice pot, but what could we add to our meal to add extra food groups to it? Somebody said they add cheese to their beans and rice. Yeah, why not? As long as it's low fat. Fruit, a fruit cup on the side, yes. A fruit cup, depending on what fruit cups you buy, that fruit cup can have added sugar in it. So try to find any of the canned fruits that say made with real fruit juice or contained in real fruit juice, instead of finding the ones that are high in that have high fructose corn syrup, which we might see as heavy syrup or light syrup. You want to try to stay away from those because that added sugar can really do an impact on our health. Excuse me. What other dishes? Let's talk about a breakfast dish that would incorporate at least 3 of the 5 food groups. Cereal. Okay, so cereal would be which one of the 5 food groups? Cereal. Yep. Grains, correct. And I'm sorry, yes, I did not see that chat. With the beans and rice, you can use brown rice. I've used it before and it's absolutely delicious. It just takes a little longer to cook, but yes, you can definitely use brown rice and that's how you make half your grains whole. Great point. All right, so back to the cereal. Cereal meaning grains. And what is the other part that everyone loves in their cereal? Dairy, right, the milk. So using low-fat dairy and using a whole grain cereal, such as Cheerios and things like that, you can actually find quite a bit of cereals that are made with whole grains. But that's 2. What can we add to our morning breakfast that would turn it into 3 food groups? Turn that meal into 3 food groups. Orange juice, correct. A cup of fruit, for sure, yes, An egg, correct. An egg it does contain a lot of protein, and actually it is also a complete protein when you eat the white with the egg yolk. So it is also a complete protein. I guess we'll talk about it again, in the future, but that was a good reference. Awesome. All right. Any questions so far? So I know we ran through my plate and what that means, right? We ran through what mise en place means. We ran through knife safety with the claw, the tunnel, and train method, right? And we went through the anatomy of the knife. We'll continue to go through the knife safety and practice of the knife safety. It's not easy. It takes quite a while. It takes a couple hours, takes some practice to actually sit there and kind of make it feel like that it's second nature to you. But again, things take time, things take patience. And in order for you to build your skills, you just want to be consistent. It's not necessarily to be the best every time. You just want to stay consistent. Consistency will be better than getting it perfect every time, for sure. And definitely those celebrity chefs, they look like they were born with those skills, but they've taken a lot of practice hours to get it to look like it's second nature to them. We are still home chefs and we are chefs in our kitchen, and it's going to take us some time. And again, we can, no matter what experience you have, whether it's with the cooking experience or whether it's knife skill experience, those skills can be built again with consistency and practice. No one's in a race. You're not racing anyone when it comes to certain things. This is a marathon, all right? It is not a sprint. Cooking is something that we want to build that skill for the rest of our lives, not just something that just will only last within these 6 weeks, I hope. All right, so it is just a couple more minutes until the pizza, and so we're going to check on our pizza. Want to address any questions you have? Excuse me. Let's discuss why do you think healthy eating is better for us? Yeah, you can say it. Yeah, go ahead. It makes us feel healthier. What does that mean? What is healthier to you? Less tired? I'm seeing in the chat some of us have hereditary diseases such as heart disease. True. Want to prevent diabetes? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we do have to remember our age, right? Everything that you eat now will catch up to you later. It may not feel like it's saturated fat or added sugars or added sodium is something that we need to worry about at this moment, but that does catch up to us later. So not only, I'm not trying to instill fear in our culinary lives and things like that. What I want is just to attract awareness. The the earlier that we start changing our lifestyle, changing our habits, and thinking and being more aware of our diet, the more we're able to build healthier habits. So instead of just saying, I want to be healthy this week because such and such thing is happening or whatever, then we can at least build, at this point, we can build healthier habits. So when you get older, it's not going to be so hard to make certain changes. And remember, changes don't come overnight. Changes come little at a time. At least the changes that we want to make is for a long time. Like we said, it's a marathon, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle change. So when we make these changes, you don't have to necessarily overnight throw everything out in your fridge. It's all about balance. So if there is something you're craving red meat, just know that you had some red meat the night before, or maybe that breakfast, or maybe that lunch, and try to have a lighter meal after that. If you know that you had a couple fried dishes that week, okay, well, you're aware at that point that you had some fried dishes, and you would then compensate, kind of almost overcompensating, because you had those fried dishes, to have some produce and some water and flush out our systems and make us feel a little bit better. Okay, make sense? Everybody with me? All right. Let's check on our, I smell it. You smell it? Somebody put pineapple on their pizza. Yeah, fruit pizza. That's cool. I should have did that. I had some pears in the fridge too. I could have put pears on it. Let me be, I'm right here. Just checking on our pizza. It's actually ready. So the reason that you want to check it at 5 minutes is because every oven is different. So my oven cooked it in a little bit faster of a time than I thought. So I just want you to make sure you're checking your pizza. And sometimes 5 minutes works, sometimes 7 minutes works, sometimes 10 minutes works. So just check up on it. This actually came out pretty looking. So this is our pizzas. And all I'm gonna do is let it sit here on an oven safe mat. Cool it slightly, and then we'll get to eat together. And I wanna hear what you guys think. Really cool. This is the hardest part of making food. Not digging into it as soon as it comes out. The smell of pizza just, it awakens the whole house. So while this cools, let's go into our PowerPoint. And have a little discussion . Just a moment. So do you think it's realistic for us to eat healthier and make healthier choices on a daily basis? I know we touched up on it, but do you think it's it's realistic for you personally to eat healthier and make healthier choices? It can be hard. It can be. It's not necessarily the easiest choices to make, right? But within this class, we are going to learn to make the healthier choice the easier choice. And we have a lot of outside resources that kind of impact our choices in our lifestyle. And especially when you are not the one in your home that is buying the produce for the house. So that can be a little bit difficult. And I do understand. But there is open communication that can be used, right? So if, let's say you made this dish and you really like it and you want more, or want to try different vegetables, zucchinis, cauliflower that we talked about, you can even make a mac and cheese pizza as long as it's got some veggies in it. and use that whole wheat pasta and that whole wheat bread. But if you are trying to invest more into your own diet and your lifestyle, a lot of times your family and friends will also follow. Reason being is that we all really want to make that lifestyle change. So yes, 100%, it can be hard. It can be hard, but it's just finding ways around making it an easier choice and a more flexible, realistic choice, instead of just picking those recipes that are hard to find, hard to do, that are expensive to purchase, and that frankly costs a lot of your time. And that's not necessarily what we're looking for. And obviously this recipe generally seems like it took a little bit more time because we're doing it together. But trust me, if I was at home, this would take me 15 minutes at most. What I want to do real quick is a quick comparison of a store-bought mini pizza and the homemade pizzas that we made today. So this is going back to the benefits of making healthier food choices. Let me move my screen. So on the left here, we have my personal pizza recipe that was from Food Hero. And to the right, we have a frozen mini pizza nutritional facts recipe as well, or a product. So I'm gonna give you a minute to kind of look through it and kind of compare what is going on between the two. And I would love to see the differences that you see in my personal pizza recipe and the frozen processed mini pizza. I see in the chat box already what you see. The servings per container, they're both one. Yes, but one says one pizza, the other one says one pizza, you're right. You can tell that the grams are different, so you do have to pay attention to the serving sizes and make sure that you are knowledgeable of how much you are eating and how much the amount of nutritional facts that is associated with the serving size, the amount that you're eating, which we will go into depth in further classes. All right, so, yep, okay, so I'm going to grab from the chats the things going from top down to compare. So top down, we started off with the serving size. Let's go into calories. So for one pizza of ours, which is a bagel pizza, which is the English muffin that they use in this recipe, we used a slice of pizza. Slice of bread, whole wheat bread. So with the calories with that, it might be somewhat separate, somewhat different, but it shouldn't be that much different. So this is about 110 calories. And as you can see, the mini pizza is about 370 calories. So even if we doubled the amount of food that we were eating, let's say the 2 slices, I made 3 today, but let's say we ate the 3 pizzas, it would be about 220 calories, which would still be less than the frozen pizza. And it's actually, you're eating more. You're technically eating 200 grams of food that would be less calories than that 142 grams of that frozen pizza. All right, next one. Can someone tell me about the fat? What do you notice? Yep, yeah, 16 grams of fat for that frozen pizza. And with a total grams of fat for that one English muffin. Today I use the whole wheat sliced bread, but there's 2 grams of fat in that whole wheat sliced bread, 16 grams in that whole pizza. Again, if we were to double it, it would be not even close to the amount of fat in that pizza, in the frozen pizza. And if you look at that saturated fat, in our recipe, it was 1 gram for that one English muffin. Again, if we were to double that, it would only be 2 grams of saturated fat because we did use that low-fat cheese. With the total calories of the frozen pizza is 16 grams. I'm sorry, 7 grams of saturated fat. That's quite a bit. Going down to the cholesterol, which is only found in animals, in animal products, we have 5 milligrams for that one English muffin. If we were to double that, that's 10. for the 2 English muffins, trying to make the same comparison as the pizza. And we are then comparing it to 15 milligrams of fat, so that's still more. With our carbohydrates, if we were to double 18 grams, that's what, 36 grams? That is still lower than our 46 grams for the frozen pizza. So we're also eating lower carb intake than we would be if we had a processed frozen mini pizza. Our fiber, our fiber looks to be almost the same. The thing is, we will actually discuss fiber later. We have used a whole grain English muffin. In the recipe, a whole grain, we used whole grain sliced bread, but in the recipe, they did not use whole grain English muffins. So that is the reflection that you see right there. I wanted you guys to say here it is. Okay, I was waiting for it. So if you notice, correct, the sodium levels. Now, remember we talked about the cans that say no salt added, and I'll actually show you what I'm talking about. So we have a can here that's of diced tomatoes, right? If you look at this can, it doesn't really look much different from any other can that you will see. The only other thing that makes it different is if you can see, I know you probably can't read backwards, but it says no salt added right there. And so what that means is when they processed this product in this can, they did not add salt. And salt is a way of preserving what is in the can, but because we have technology, it's 2020, things are made differently than they used to. We actually don't need so much can to preserve what's in these. We don't need so much sodium to preserve what is in these cans anymore. Our linings are made differently, the metal is different. So if I was to turn this over to try to figure out how much sodium was in a serving, over here it's only 15 milligrams. If you can see, it's 15 milligrams for half a cup, right here. 15 milligrams for a half a cup serving, versus if I was to take a regular can, this is a can of tomato sauce. It does not have the no salt added description. It's just regular tomato sauce. And so for a quarter cup, we'll just leave it at that, just a quarter cup. Sodium levels are 260 milligrams. 260 milligrams of sodium for a quarter cup. That's compared to 15 milligrams, 260 milligrams. So that's what I was saying about being careful of the sodium levels when you buy frozen or canned processed foods. Just be aware to try to look for that no salt added label on any cans. So like you had pointed out in the chat, my personal pizza recipe, 260 milligrams of sodium was in the recipe, versus if you were to buy a frozen pizza recipe, a frozen mini pizza, that's 920 milligrams. It's quite a bit for one meal. It's a lot for one meal. And that's what puts the pressure on our heart to work harder and to pump blood and things like that, to do it faster, quicker at a normal rate, which we can talk about later. I saw some questions in the chat, some private questions, so we can definitely talk about that. And somebody was talking about the protein. Why does one have more protein than the other? Understood. So let's say we were to double our protein from the My Personal Pizza to get it to the level of the mini frozen pizza. So that would be about 10 grams because of what we put on our plate. But you can add more protein, right? Usually our pizzas and things like that come with pepperoni and stuff. And you don't necessarily have to do that. You can do it at home and try to find a low fat, low sodium option. Turkey pepperoni is is a nice leaner option. I just wanted to show you that little comparison. All right, so these are the handouts and tips that we had used in our PowerPoint. So if you wanted to have these at hand and be able to look at them later, I can definitely send them to you. Just send me a little DM and let me know that to send you those links. I'll actually send it publicly to everyone. You can copy and paste them to wherever you need to. We are going to eat together, or y'all eat together. We'll wrap it up. This has been the live mock of Lesson 1, Teens Cook for Cooking Matters for Teens. Thank you. Let me just repeat this. If you can just give me a couple moments. People are showing pictures of what they ate. They look beautiful. They look beautiful. Thank you for joining us today. We know the healthier choice isn't always the easiest choice, but small choice changes can make a big difference. Start today by getting involved with SNAP-Ed New York. The program is free for those who qualify and receive SNAP benefits. We want to help you save time, save money, and eat healthy. Learn how SNAP-Ed can make a big difference in your life. For more information and find your local program, visit snapednewyork.org. This material was funded by the USDA's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as SNAP. This institution is an equal opportunity provider. Thank you.